Hi, it's Taylor with Mom on the Spectrum, and today we're going to be talking about the connection between, or maybe disconnection between, the brain and the body in autistic people. This is something that I think about all the time. It's a common theme that comes up for me. I work one-on-one with the autistic community every day. I do online coaching, I do community events, and this is a pattern that I have noticed in our community, this disconnect between our brain and our body. So this week, this suggestion was sent in by one of the channel members, Sue-Ann, and I appreciate your suggestion, Sue-Ann. As soon as I saw it, I said, yeah, let's do it, because this is worth discussion. So if you're new here, I was diagnosed as autistic at the age of 31. I'm 34 now, and it totally changed my life. That's why I started my channel, because having the right vocabulary and the right words for understanding my experience has just made all the difference in the world. So here on my channel, I create resources aimed to support autistic adults because I don't feel like there's near enough resources out there. If that sounds like something that might be helpful to you, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and like this video. Okay, so first of all, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a medical provider. These are all just, especially this video today, sometimes I do more planned out like bullet point videos, but this one's going to be more stream of conscious because I'm still forming my thoughts on this. So all that to say, these are just my experiences. These are observations I've made from working with the community day in and day out for the past few years. It seems like there's a disconnect in my life between my brain and my body. So let me expand on this. I feel like I spend an inordinate amount of time in my head. And I think this is actually what led me to seeking an autism diagnosis, because for my whole adult life, I've been seeking therapy and help for better understanding my brain, because I'm like, my brain operates in a way that other people's doesn't. I don't know how to explain it other than it's just different. So I spend all of this time up here in my brain. It's just like a factory that never stops. And a lot of times it takes me out of the present moment, because my body, I think a long time ago, I kind of stopped receiving those cues from my body. And it's interesting because things that autistic people struggle with are related to the body. So interoception is something that people on the spectrum struggle with. It is the ability to register internal cues from our body. So when we're hungry, when we're thirsty, when we need to go to the bathroom, when we're tired, all of those things require interoception. Along with interoception, there's a term called alexithymia, which is the inability to express emotions with words. And so we might have strong emotions, we might have actually pretty overwhelming emotions in our body, but be unable to talk about them or communicate about them. Instead of being able to say, I'm angry, we might be aware that our hands are clenched, but we might not understand that this is anger. Also, there's a term called proprioception. So proprioception is the sense of where our body is in space. So if I walk into a door frame instead of walking through a door frame, my proprioception is off. Proprioception allows us to accurately navigate the spaces that we're in. So all of these terms can be helpful for understanding and framing our experience as autistic people. I particularly notice the disconnect between my brain and my body a lot in social situations, because I've gotten so used to, I just am on such high alert in social situations, trying to figure out where I'm supposed to be looking, how do I respond to this, and then redirecting myself to the conversation, because I get bogged down in the factory, making connections to literally, I don't want to say literally, but it feels like literally a million other things. So it's just this constant funneling in my brain that I have to do when I'm in social situations. And so I might have to pee, or I might, something that was said might have just upset me, but I'm not registering that yet because there's too much work to do in my brain. So my body gets shut down. I think this can also be related to the fawning response. So the stress responses, you probably heard fight or flight. There's also freeze and fawn. Fawning is pretending like everything's okay, and even when it's not. And this is something that I also recognize as something that comes up a lot in the autistic community. And so it's concerning then that in so many of these situations, we're not accurately able to respond to what our body's saying, because this is very similar to a trauma response. Whenever we go through trauma, we kind of shut down anything that's non-essential, and we lose touch with what our body's trying to communicate, right? So maybe you can think of a time when you were super, super scared and you lost feeling in your arms or something, right? You went numb, or you had a panic attack and your whole body felt really cold. There's all kinds of interesting things that our body does when it's shutting off so that our brain can use power elsewhere. So I think, and it seems to me that over the course of time, autistic people kind of train ourselves out of responding to our body because it has kept us safe at one point or another. So instead of maybe leaving the conversation that we just became a part of at the party or social gathering, instead of leaving the situation to go to the bathroom, we might like force our way through the conversation because we don't want to be rude. We don't want to miss out on anything. And so we try to do the socially appropriate thing and like keep ourselves in a situation even though our body's telling us something else. I think also in social situations, we've kind of trained ourselves a lot of times to be really focused on the other person's experience, which this is really confusing because the stereotype of autistic people is that we're not empathetic, which is totally bogus and unfounded. Because I think especially in social situations, we're very focused on what the other person's experience is. We want to make sure that we are being respectful. That's another big thing in the autistic community. Like we are full of integrity, we are respectful, we're honest, and we're often trying to communicate those things in social situations. We may have learned how to mask through bodily discomfort, right? We might have gotten used to whenever our body's telling us to leave a certain situation, we train ourselves to stay there because we're supposed to, because this is what we're supposed to do socially. And so we've kind of trained out those cues in our body that's saying, hey, take care of yourself, listen to this. We've said, no, I've got this. I know how to mask my way through this. So then what happens is we stop registering those cues in our body. And our body might even stop giving us the cues because it thinks, hey, you don't need this, so I'm going to stop telling you about it. This leads to burnout, exhaustion, anxiety, overwhelm, depression. I mean, anytime that we're subduing our body's response system, I mean, it has negative consequences. And you add this in the mix with delayed processing, which is another thing that we struggle with on the spectrum, like needing space and time to kind of formulate our thoughts and ideas. It's kind of a recipe for a whole heck of a mess. I'm recognizing for myself whenever I enter into a meltdown state, there's so much physical dysregulation. Like I haven't stemmed enough. I haven't listened to my body's cues. And so part of regulating myself when I'm in a state of meltdown is regulating myself physically, right? Having large physical stems, getting up and moving my body, making sure I've gone to the bathroom, making sure that I've had something to eat and drink. Taking care of my body helps me regulate back to a place of balance. And I got out of balance in the first place because I wasn't regulating my body. There are two other things that people on the spectrum tend to struggle with. One of those is dyspraxia, which is also known as developmental coordination disorder. And this affects our movement and our coordination. And then also apraxia, got the definition here, the loss of ability to execute or carry out skilled movement and gestures, despite having the physical ability and desire to perform them. So it's all of these disconnects between what our brain needs to do, wants to do, and what our body is doing. It can feel kind of like part of you is missing, like you're not operating on all cylinders, that you're not in the right gear to drive forward because your body's lagging behind. And I feel that way a lot of times in conversation. I feel like my brain is so far ahead of where I need to be that it's really hard to find my place, if that makes sense. Sue-Ann, the one who suggested this video, she said, I always feel like my body is going to make a popping sound and vanish like a soap bubble. And I thought that was just too interesting not to share. I'm curious in the comments if anybody else experiences something like that. But yeah, I think the bottom line is it's really hard to integrate our mind and our body as a person on the spectrum. I do think it's possible to work on fostering a better connection between the two. I think it comes down to a lot like nurturing trust in yourself, because if you've gotten used to subduing those cues that your body's giving you over and over again, you're gonna have to learn how to retrust yourself and retrust your instincts and let your body know, hey, when you give me information, I'm not just gonna ignore it and suppress it anymore. So this is a long-term process of reintegrating these two things, and I'm kind of trying to figure that out right now for myself. I know that emotional support is really important, so learning how to identify your emotions, learning more about emotional health and maturity can really help you identify what's going on in your body. Being mindful, like I know that sounds a little cheesy and maybe too simplified, but it's really so powerful. And that's maybe the theme of my 30s. I just turned 34. It's like simple is usually the best way to go, right? I think we try to overcomplicate things and have these big answers and cures for things, but like when it comes down to it, it's really the simplest things that make the biggest difference. So just creating space to ask yourself what your body's feeling. That's mindfulness. Like, what is happening right now in this present moment? Speaking of the present moment, cultivating practices to be in the present moment. So that's the only way that we can be embodied. So if we're thinking about the past or the present, we're definitely in our brain. We're in our brain spinning out about something. But in order to be embodied, we have to be in the present, engage your senses. What do you see? What do you smell? What can you hear? What can you touch in front of you? So engaging your senses can help you focus on this present moment, which can help you be more embodied. Also, practices like yoga, just exercising in general, where you're moving your body and feeling its response. That's helpful for cultivating good proprioception and other connection with your body. Meditation is great, although I've noticed for people on the spectrum, it really can require some creativity with coming up with your own way to meditate in a way that feels good, because sitting on a cushion and being totally still, that might not be what you need. You might need to move around while you meditate, and I'm going to give you permission to do that. You don't need my permission, but meditation can look however you want it to look. So my brain's kind of running out of steam, honestly. This is hard to talk about because I think it's such an issue for me. But I at least wanted to start the conversation because I notice this pattern all the time, every day, in all of the events that I run. And so I wanted to start the discussion, get some ideas from y'all in the comments. Because this connection, I think, is closely related to meltdowns. If you're interested in learning how to better manage your meltdowns, you can check out my meltdown survival guide, and I'll put the link to that in the description. That's a 14-page guide that's going to give you more information about what the heck your nervous system is actually doing in a meltdown and how you can better prepare for those, how you can better manage through them and recover afterwards. If this video was helpful to you, please give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and keep the suggestions coming for future videos. Thank you again to Suyan for this suggestion, and I will see everybody in the next video. Be kind to yourself. You are an incredible person. Bye.